I think it's time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
So, it's a fitness channel. I'm sure this seems completely random, but this is something I've been working on for a long time. I've just been putting it off way too much, just making excuses, and this week, no more excuses. I have a more thorough intro planned for the channel. I'm just putting a little bit more production into it, so it's taken me forever, and that's been one of my excuses. So I'll have that down the road, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing things. We're just going to cut right to it. So this is the first of my Train With Me videos, and if you found this video, chances are you already know whether or not you think I'm legit or completely full of shit. So, train with me. Let's talk about what that is and what that isn't. It isn't free personal training, a free program, or nutritional or fitness advice. I'm not your personal trainer. I'm my personal trainer. And I'm just giving you an opportunity to kind of sit in and see how I would train myself. And by seeing that, maybe you can take some thoughts, some perspectives, maybe some exercises, or just a new approach at something and apply it to your own fitness journey. What it is, it's a thorough look at exercises and technique, and also maybe just a way to put a new spin on some old favorites. I don't consider myself an authority on fitness, but I do consider myself an expert. And the role of the expert is to help the uninformed understand overly complex issues. It's not your job to know this stuff. It's my job. And it's also my job to be able to communicate this stuff to you in a way that makes it helpful to you so that you can apply it to your lifestyle and hopefully get a better quality of life. My personal goals are right now kind of focused on my bench press and my deadlift. I'm going to make a couple videos sort of explaining more about those movements and why I think they're so important in a strength training program. But for right now, my main focus is on recovering from a strained muscle in my neck and then building up the strength for those powerlifting movements. Again, the bench press and the deadlift. So I started with my bench press today. Generally, I start with the most complex movements and try to finish with the most isolated movements. So starting with my bench press, I knew I was doing volume today, so I wanted to hit a couple sets of 15 repetitions and then bring it down to a more moderate weight for sets of 10. And so my working weight today was 185, and I hit a couple, I think altogether I hit 3 sets of 15 at 135. So the main thing I'm looking at here is the symmetry of my arms. My right arm doesn't look too steady to me. I feel like I need to pull that right elbow in a little bit more. I need to be engaging that side a little bit more. I'm just recovering from a muscle strain in my neck, my levator scapulae, and so I was probably hyper focusing on that left side a little bit, but at moments I correct it, and at others it kind of gets away from me. So that was my standard bench press. Just got to work on that symmetry and engaging that lat on the right side a little bit more. So these are my working sets. I did 3 sets of 10, working at 185. And whenever I'm working with clients, one thing that always tends to happen on volume days is there is too much intensity out of the gate. And volume, just because we're doing a lot of repetitions, doesn't always mean they need to be done fast or they need to be done at high intensity. Those are two specific modalities, and Usually what I'll try to do with some of my more technical movements is record my first set and my last set so that I can really see what starts to fail and break down. And so looking at my first set here, I was kind of executing a little bit more of that intensity, a little bit more of a dynamic set. So not trying to be explosive, just trying to string the movements together, trying to keep my breathing in time with my movements, and again, just kind of focus a little bit more on that intensity. So that was my first set of 10. Here is my third set of 10. So my CNS is struggling to keep up with my muscles. My muscular endurance is way beyond my central nervous system as far as endurance goes. It's just easier to train your muscles than it is your CNS in this way. So you can see I'm really having to be much more deliberate with my bracing because my nervous system is having to recruit a lot more muscles to execute this movement, which is good. That's what we're going for. But if I would still be trying to execute this with high intensity, you'd see me driving my butt off of the bench. You'd see me swimming the thing up. You know, all of these things to just get to the end of a range of motion, not executing good form, executing good technique, and executing muscle activation. That's what this entire thing is about. So if you are working muscular endurance, don't confuse speed with endurance. You're not trying to get something done quickly. You're trying to get something done so that you can continue to do it longer and longer periods of time. So, like I said, I am kind of recovering from a strained neck muscle that was really affecting a lot of stuff with my shoulder as well. And we're going to look at a couple different things here. I'm going to go back to one of my older posts as well. But I got a little bit cocky, and this incline might be a tad higher than what I was, but I think these what I'm going to show are both 15-degree inclines. But I got the 75s out and started to do my set. Here I wanted to do sets of 12 because again, I'm kind of thinking of that muscular conditioning. And so if I can do a set of 10, well, 12 is just going to get me that much more on these kind of moderate weight days. So I always kick it up to 12 reps, just my little whatever. So 75s wrecked me. My shoulder was popping, all kinds of angry stuff. So I cut the weight in half and went down to 35s and just worked really specific motions, particularly my shoulders here. I was really trying to keep my shoulders pinned to the bench and make sure that the rotation is happening around my shoulder, not kind of pulling through my shoulder. And I'm going to show you what I mean here. But just pinning my shoulders down, I hope that wasn't an awful sound on the mic, was my focus here. And we'll go ahead and same thing, my first and last set. Really, the only difference here was my pecs started to get extremely fatigued. This is my first time working a lot of dumbbell movements in about a month. So those stabilizers were just getting tired. So I should have known better than to grab the heavy weights up front. Here we go. So this was August 23rd. Oh, just about a month ago. And right there, already, my shoulders are pulled forward into my pectorals, which is pulling that's just putting strain on that joint first thing. And yeah, this is angry. Ugh. All right. So there is no rotation happening at my shoulders. I'm not using my rotator cuff. I am locking my shoulder in place and then pulling it forward with my pectoral and then resetting it with my trap. My neck just popped. Yeah. So the first thing that happens is my shoulders are moving up towards my ears. My shoulders are not rotating. My rotator cuff is not engaging. I'm working around it. And this is why everybody that gets shoulder problems from lifting thinks it's their rotator cuff. It's not. It's your labrum. It's a very specific part of your shoulder, and doing a movement like this will wreck your labrum. So today my big focus was on correcting that by making sure my shoulders stayed glued to the bench and I am loading my rhomboids and my rotator cuff rather than my labrum. I was kind of struggling to think of some things to do with dumbbells as far as triceps go, and kind of more stabilization without just going right to shoulder presses or something like that. So I did some tricep kickbacks, and one thing I always see a lot of people do is really overutilize their rear delt and their traps. The goal isn't necessarily to keep the arm parallel to the floor. You really just want to be able to get a good extension right there at the elbow, and if I try to get my elbow too high up, that just pulls into my neck, which then again, kind of like I said, forces your rear delt to engage parts of your shoulder that we're not looking for, rather than your tricep. So usually I will just try to keep my elbow kind of glued to my ribs and just really get a strong lockout at that elbow. Now, one of the things about the rope press down, two things I see people do inefficiently. One thing is they don't treat this movement rhythmically. They still treat it like an overloading exercise where you can do a lot of weight with this movement. I shouldn't say movement, with this piece of equipment, because you can move heavy weight with the movement, but with this piece of equipment, it has a specific purpose, and particularly at the bottom of the tricep. So I'm going to go through that, but the other thing is, usually when people overload it like that, they also end up completely overusing their forearms. And so one thing I try to pay attention to when I'm doing these press downs is if I were to do a karate chop, I would not kind of whip my wrist at the end of that karate chop. That would break my fingers or kind of break the bones in my hand. If I'm doing a karate chop, I want to kind of hit with the blade of my palm here, not my fingers whipping my hand. So keeping the wrists tight and pulling the rope apart on your press downs is gonna really activate this bottom piece of the tricep that gets missed a lot. And even when it doesn't get missed, it only activates for fractions of a second or a couple seconds. You know, this is the part of your tricep that locks your elbow out. So if we're talking about a bench press or an overhead press, it's about there. That's really all the activation it gets. So this movement gives you a lot of opportunity to turn that muscle on without straining that joint and kind of developing some tennis elbow. And again, kind of completing the tricep, especially at that bottom piece. So if you feel like the back of your arm is just kind of bulky and you can move a lot of weight on a press down, try using the ropes like this, and that will kind of start to pull that definition a little bit more. And again, kind of like I said, will just complete the look of the tricep. Now we're at the end of the video, and all I can say is thank you for watching. I genuinely, truly appreciate it. I'm planning to do one upper body training video and one lower body training video each week. If you enjoyed this video, and more than anything, if you learned anything from it, I'm asking more for people to share and subscribe to the channel. Likes and comments are great, but I'm not trying to play a part of the algorithm. I just want good information to get out to as many people as possible. And I'd like to think I'm a pretty good resource. Until next time, drink tons of water, stay healthy, and stay safe.